in that time, Mark just came on, so thank you for joining us.
Great.
I'm going to turn this over to Pat, Muth, and Bill to kick us off.
Okay.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being with us today. We are incredibly excited to be kicking off this effort this morning. Obviously, there are plenty of new techniques we're going to be employing moving forward, given these surreal times in which we're living. So we're really grateful to everybody for joining us virtually and giving us the opportunity to share really some of the different ways Catholic Charities has been behaving and responding in this kind of new normal in preparation for our leadership breakfast. Before we get started, I wanted to just say a special thank you to both Natalie Ramirez and Dana Boyer, who have worked behind the scenes on this to make sure that this comes off without a hitch. Dana is going to be our MC today. She'll be taking over in just a moment. So we're really grateful to them for helping. And of course, to Alison Stone, who's our guest speaker today, who will be sharing her thoughts on the efforts Catholic Charities has put forth on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So with that said, I will turn it over to Bill for an invocation, and then Dana will get us started.
Thank you, Pat. I'd like to lead us in prayer in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord God, you came to give honor to the least, those forgotten, overlooked, and misjudged. You came to give first place to the last, those left behind, misunderstood, and undervalued. You came to give a warm welcome to the lost, those who are orphaned, abandoned, and destitute. Help us to be your ears to listen to their cries. Help us to be your voice, speaking out love and acceptance. Help us to be your feet, walking beside those in need. Help us to be your hands to clothe, feed, and to shelter them. You came for the least, the lost, and the last of this world. Lord, hear our prayer. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Dana.
Now it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Alison Stone. Alison is currently the Director of Mission Integration at Catholic Charities, a former teacher in the Baltimore City Public Schools, and a licensed social worker by training. She is invested in helping create systems, strategies, and programs that uphold our Catholic Charities values to teach and work for justice. In her 15 years with the agency, Alison has held various roles related to social justice education in the community with people of all ages. Currently, she is honored to work with our volunteer managers, our parish social ministry team, and run our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative as she helps the agency live out its mission as fully as possible. Alison, thank you for speaking with us today.
I see many familiar faces, and I think I've met most of you along the way, but if I haven't met you in person, it's good to be here and see you this morning. Sharing and learning about these issues of equity, inclusion, race, racism, it really is one of my passions, and there's many reasons why it's a passion, but one of those is what Dana mentioned, my kind of first career here in Baltimore as a city school teacher. Taught 5th grade at Northwood Elementary School on Loch Raven. And the 5th graders that I had the honor to teach really taught me so much, as did my colleagues, and really embraced me as a young white teacher in the city school system, which is not a unique thing, but really taught me a lot about race and racism and how we can work together, more fully. And of course, here at Catholic Charities, we've always been focused on treating people with dignity and respect, looking at these issues, and learning about cultural competency, as social workers would call it, learning about, different cultures where people come from, and really trying to treat everybody that we meet with dignity and respect. But this more holistic approach that we're engaged in now. All right, let me check, Katie. She's texting in. How's my volume?
Yeah, hey, Alison, real quickly, it's really quiet on your end. Is there on the mute thing, there might be a way to mess with your microphone a little bit. Test the microphone there.
it better without the headphones or not? No. Yeah, Catherine says no. One thing. Let me try one thing.
That's better.
Is that better?
Yes.
Whatever that was, Allison, that was better.
I twitched my nose the right way.
There you go.
I'll try to use my teacher voice as well. So this more holistic approach that we're engaged in now became part of our strategy, really agency-wide, as you know, like in the fall of 2016. And we started with our agency assessment, where we ask our colleagues and stakeholders their thoughts on diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we needed to know where folks were so we could formulate a plan going forward. And now we're living into that plan, and it's really exciting to be in a time where it's coming to life, and the background work that we've done is coming into fruition. So today we'll talk a little bit about the initiative itself, but we'll also talk about some of the more broad principles that we're using as our foundation, and definitely also discuss how our work as a DEI council has been impacted by the events of the spring and summer around the country. So why did we choose this process? The short answer is that Bill often gives is because it will make us better as an agency and as individuals. It's going to make us do our work better. It's going to make us better as a whole, so we'll have a greater impact on the community. Another foundational reason, of course, is also our agency vision. You all know that we work to cherish the divine within all people. So our foundation in the Catholic faith is rooted in this dignity, and this leads us towards cherishing that God-given spark. When we use that vision, we realize that this initiative is just a furthering of our mission and living that out. We've been very clear from the beginning, it's not a quick fix, it's not a one-time training, it's not just HR policies on paper, it's really a sharpening of this vision, taking this vision of cherishing all people and integrating it into all that we do. And it just has to be part of our strategy, because it's going to shape so much of our work, who does it, how it's done, how people perceive us, and really the impact that we can make. Next slide, Dana. Thank you. She's very good at that. She just has that. You can feel when I'm ready for the next slide. This is just a snapshot kind of what Catholic Charities looks like as a whole when you think about our colleagues, our clients, our partners, our stakeholders. And a lot of times now, you know, people will say, well, of course we want more diversity, or we want, you know, we want to be in a diverse environment, but you know, what are we really talking about? And at Catholic Charities, we're talking about all the different things that make people unique, that make people individuals, and looking at how those things play out across the agency in different roles. Certainly, I think one of the things that we've really started to learn more as a whole country in this time is that when we talk about race and racism in 2020, we really shouldn't claim any longer that we are being colorblind. For many years, that was a positive thing. As I was growing up, that was what you wanted to try to be. Well, I'm colorblind. I don't see color. I don't judge people based on the color of their skin. But that has really shifted, because that assumes that we don't already kind of have these hardwired perceptions in our brain about different groups, about race, gender, other parts of their identity. And it also doesn't celebrate all the good things about people's differences. And to just say, I don't see color, well, we do, right? We all see it. And hopefully, yes, maybe we're not acting in a different way because we see it, but to see it and celebrate it. You know, here at Catholic Charities, we see the need for structural approaches. That's kind of clear as we just look at the composition of our staff. There are around, as most of you know, around 2,000 colleagues in our 9 counties and in Baltimore City. Right now, we have 53% of those staff who identify as Black, and 73 identify as female. So, and then also, as you know, if you look at our org chart, that kind of flips a little bit. Just that the vast majority of our top leadership is white. I do want to say that we have many more females in leadership, in the top leadership, than we did even just a few years ago, and that is a positive and an intentional shift. And we have other plans in place to look at specifically, you know, racial diversity in that those top tiers of leadership within the agency. So in the country now, these are just a few images of some of what's gone on in the past few years, actually. We're in a new time of awakening about race and racism, although it's not really new. It's new to some of us who, you know, weren't paying attention as clearly, weren't listening maybe as clearly, weren't taking the time to understand. But a lot of what has happened this spring and summer is not new experiences for people who are Black, for people of color. But as an agency, to look at this work as a whole, we realize that in the nonprofit community, we need to be a leader in this. In the larger community, we can be a force for change. We have to look at these issues, and we chose to look at them as a whole 4 years ago because we knew they were integral to the lives of those we serve, those who work here, and all of us as we try to love, serve, teach, and work for justice. So this is work that, you know, we can't dance around. And thankfully, I don't think we have been. I say that, but we'll also say, and we still have a lot to learn, right? It's not, it's gonna be an ongoing work in progress. We're not perfect, we're not doing it all right, but we do have to be honest, be real, and be clear about what we're talking about and about this work. Dana, if you can switch to the next slide. We often say, as I mentioned earlier, that we can say, we want to work to diversify our upper management, you know, and then it's really not clear. It's still kind of a euphemism to say, you know, diversify. Instead of, you know, we know that we have a lot of leaders in our agency who are male, or a lot of leaders who are white males or white females, and we're working to ensure there are more women, more people of color in our upper management roles. Really being specific and concrete, not in a way that like violates HR principles, or not in a way that, you know, but in a way that is making sure we're looking at a really diverse pool of candidates when we have options, looking at how we hire people, how we promote people once they're here. And that honesty, when we kind of look at where we are, will also help us see our blind spots better. Like, oh, we do have 56% right now, and it's been more than that in the past, people of color in the agency. So why haven't we been promoting people of color to different leadership roles? So we have to look at that and look at those processes. Being clear about what we're doing, that we want to intentionally build this culture that's inclusive of all aspects of diversity. And then being very real as well. Working towards equity is going to be hard. Equity, you know, it's not the same as equality. It's looking at how can we remove barriers that make people have the same opportunities. We want to come to a point perhaps when we can't predict who's have a high rate of graduation based on their race or ethnicity. But right now, we can still predict that. So we're not living in a culture that's fully equitable. One of the best ways I've heard to describe this kind of concept of equity is with a metaphor of a moving sidewalk in an airport. You all remember airports? I haven't been in one lately, but oftentimes I will jump on the moving sidewalk, right? Because it's faster, and if my bag is heavy, it's just a lot easier. And if you're watching the people walk past you, they're not they're not keeping up at the same pace unless they're really power walking. So I've heard especially this concept of how do we get towards equity and how do we talk about privilege and privilege that comes with being white, as like, because I'm a white woman, I've oftentimes just gotten to be on the moving sidewalk of life while colleagues and friends and people I know of color are walking next to me. They don't have the benefit of the moving sidewalk. They may even start, you may start at the same point. Once you start, that moving sidewalk just picks you up and takes you faster. Gets you more easily where you need to be. That's been a helpful metaphor for me to think about. And hopefully it's one that you can continue to peel back a little. There is a nonprofit that's called Embrace Race, and they're doing some really good work around all these issues. They actually do a lot related to parenthood and parenting around race. But if the technology gods are with us, we're gonna watch a clip of a video that shows some of the ways that they define their work. And it starts with something that they call being race positive. So it's somewhat kind of the opposite of the colorblind approach. So I think it's gonna work her magic. If my link will work for her. Oh, look.
Race, but it's in sort of an opposition to colorblindness, to this idea that race is to be avoided. We want it to be a race forward, race positive.
You want to read? Adam left his new home. It was high, high, high in a tall tower in the city. It was exciting.
What we're really trying to do is help kids develop a critical race lens.
I want him to understand the privilege that his white skin gives him, and not in a guilt way, but I want him to understand his responsibility then in the world to be working to dismantle racism, to make the world more colorful rather than colorblind.
We have conversations that are online where we invite you to participate. We have people sharing their wisdom, people like you, people like me. There are, in terms of racism, there are structures that limit possibilities for people that are racialized. And then there are agents who can change those structures. And the only way you can sort of change the structures ultimately is to change the agents. Start early.
Do you remember what you guys said at the end of it?
And if you see something wrong, be strong and say that's not okay.
And you see something wrong, be strong and say, that's not okay. I love that.
I think it's true that in the US, we can solve almost anything.
We're hopeful. And it's also part of why we're doing this work, is so that kids don't internalize these messages about who's more valuable than someone else.
Can we nurture the generation of children and young people who will grow up to be adults who are willing to take on racial inequality of any kind?
To raise kids who can imagine something different today and tomorrow would bring us to an America of inclusion.
Thanks, Dana. I really like how they talk about, being the agents. Like if we can't change the structures and systems feel huge, but we can change the agents. Meaning talking about race and racism with our children when they're young, but also meaning wherever we are at our stage and age in life, learning and growing and talking about it, and figuring out where we are and how can we contribute to the race positive conversation. So the way that we've tried to do that here at Catholic Charities, as many of you know, is created the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, which is a council of 12 colleagues that have been looking at these recommendations from our assessment for the past few years. So this slide just shows a couple of things that we've been doing. We've divided ourselves into two kind of work groups. One work group works on our inclusion groups, we're calling them. Those are affinity groups or ERGs, some people call them, employee resource groups. our communication side, and the other group works on our kind of people and culture issues, our HR issues, and our training. And so as we came into 2020, the DEI Council had a plan to start monthly lunch and learn sessions, to begin a training with our HR team, which is a team of around 20 people, and then our DEI Council, and we added eight other leaders to that. So we had almost 40 people going through a training on racial equity starting in January. And we started these monthly kind of lunch and learn sessions around different topics in January as well. So I have, I think once, the next slide, Dana, I'll talk about the inclusion groups real quick before we talk about, so then what happened in May, right? So our inclusion groups have started. They started just about a year ago. We have an inclusion group for women. It's called Women Empowered, and an inclusion group for people of color. So we started 2, and we're going to soon roll out 2 more. And those have been a great way for folks to connect, especially even during this COVID time. We've had some people participate who couldn't participate before because we're using Zoom, they couldn't travel or they couldn't get away from their work site and things like that. So these are a great way for our colleagues to learn more, to become an ally, to participate. And it's been really exciting to see what those 2 groups have already done in this early first year. So, and then, as I said, we had these things kind of lined up that started happening January, February, right? And then March changed everything with, okay, now we can't do in person everything. So we shifted our racial equity training with 40 people to Zoom. We shifted our lunch and learn sessions to Zoom. And then we all experienced the moment, you know, across the country of watching and witnessing the murder of George Floyd. And we knew we had to talk about it, obviously. We were poised and ready. And we also were aware that it was going to be hard. But that's what we came into this with. Our vision for this agency was that this stuff is going to be hard to talk about, but we want to be comfortable talking about the hard things. So Bill hosted a wonderful meeting where Amy Collier from Community Services, our division director, shared some of her personal and professional reflections on what happened to Mr. Floyd. And a conversation just started out of that. One of the other kind of tangible things we did was start offering sessions to any staff across the agency called "Where Do We Go From Here?" So, you know, Bill issued a statement after the murder of George Floyd, and building on that, our colleagues from our Trauma-Informed Care Committee got together with our DEI Council and said, let's just have some time where people can come together and talk. So we've offered 4 or 5 of those open sessions where we've just talked and people have been able to say what they were feeling, thinking. We've had amazing dialogues between staff at different levels, staff with different genders, ethnicities, just where are we? And have really been able to be pretty honest about that, but still know that we've got more work to do and further to dig, you know, into some of those things. So we hosted those conversations. Dana, the next slide shows some of the other things we've been doing lately. Yeah, I just indicated here that we also created a document for that meeting that I referenced that Bill hosted with the agency. It's about 70 agency leaders or so, of 13 actions we can take to pursue racial justice. So this was a combination of our DEI Council and our advocacy team working to come up with some really concrete things that we can do. And we can share that document with you all. There's a link there that says, well, it says read, watch, and learn. The read link is the Archbishop's statement that we were discussing at the beginning of the meeting, talking about Black Lives Matter. One of the other things that we did was order lawn signs. We ordered Black Lives Matter signs that we could put up at our different programs. So like I said, we're trying to listen and that's what those Where Do We Go From Here sessions have been a lot about, that we want to listen to our colleagues and their experiences. Dialogue, keep the conversation going, keep learning and keep pushing and keep stretching ourselves to do more and more and be better and better in this arena. So I think that is probably enough of me talking about what we've been up to, and I'll hand it to back over to Dana or whoever else wants to jump in now.
Yeah, thank you, Alison, for the presentation. We're going to open up a Q&A now. So are there any questions for Alison?
Alison, can we go back a little bit to the inclusion groups? Can you describe the process as to how they came about?
Oh, yes.
And then what the 2 new inclusion groups are, which followed a similar process?
Right. So the little over a year ago, we did a survey of our colleagues, just a quick survey, one or 2 questions, like, would you be interested in an inclusion group? And if so, which topics do you think we should start first? So we didn't want to just create, 8 of them, assuming that we knew what folks really wanted to talk about and come together around. So we did that survey, and from that survey, the women and people of color were the first 2 that folks were interested in. So we started those, and then this spring and summer, one of the other things we did was offer some kind of gathering sessions around some potential new inclusion groups. So based on that survey, we knew that folks were interested in an interfaith group. We knew that folks were interested in a group around LGBTQ+ issues, and we knew that folks were interested in caregivers or people with disabilities and those that we're taking care of. So we hosted a group around interfaith issues and a group around LGBTQ, just like come chat, talk, let's see, where the interest is. So we have plans now to start that next group around interfaith issues first, and then to follow with the other topics.
Do we have any other questions?
Alison, whoops, it's Mary Louise. On one of the slides, you noted 13 actions to take. If I click on that, will I find the 13 actions?
That is the hope, yes.
And Mary Louise, we're going to be sending a follow-up email to everyone after this, so we'll make sure we include that in the follow-up email so all of you have access to that.
I can also share that on the screen right now.
Okay, yeah, I think Dana can at least show the link. It's kind of small font, but you'll get the idea, and we can share the.
Great.
Yeah, I think the importance there as a group, as we began this dialogue and listening, it was felt that we needed to offer concrete ways that people could move forward in their understanding how they might share their voice and steps that they could take. And so the group really did a great job, both our advocacy group and our DEI council, as a starting point. And what we said, these are things we've come up with. We're open to other ideas and many other things that we'd love for people to participate in. So this is a living document. And I think there's, people have really embraced it. People are comfortable doing different things. People are at different places of where they are. So we tried to offer concrete ways that anybody, wherever you're sitting, could participate and grow. And I think that's what we want to continue to do as well. We'll be doing, Alison may not know this yet, I have a series of town halls coming up, and one, we'll have another town hall really focused on racial justice and furthering the discussion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that'll be our 3rd town hall as these town halls that I'm setting up for beginning this fall as well. It's an important, as Alison said, what I wanted to resist when we decided to start this journey is that this is a cultural change. This is a personal journey. This is a way of working for justice for us, and it's ongoing. It's something that is part of what we do, much like our mission is, and we're never done. And the point is, because it is never done. And so it's something I'm excited about. I'm proud of where we were and are. I found the assessment that we did at the beginning, some of it was pretty obvious. Some of it was, really enlightening to me. And I'm proud of how the group has taken that and prioritized, what we're going to do on this journey and continue to seek input on that. So that's kind of where we are. So we'll continue to do that. And Mary Louise, prior to starting the call, brought about our board training that we did the initial one. And there's more training for the board as well as we're going through this, and all of our stakeholders. And part of our strategic plan is not only our current groups that we work with on this, but also getting more into schools and parishes with this work as well, and other partners.
Bill, I really appreciate that. And I think that those of you who are, like taking the first steps are really to be congratulated, but also heartfelt thanks, because as you sit alone trying to learn and listen and maybe read, there's a lot more that needs to be done. And one of the reasons that I really enjoyed so much the board training that we had is that the facilitators were very good. And above all, I think change comes about when we have a quiet place, a non-threatening place to listen to what other people are saying. And what happened to them? I first, as you might imagine, Bill, became aware of this more in the political world, because there are all those people. I lived in my privileged little world, not thinking it was privileged. And so I was rather shocked to have to begin to understand how a lot of things are different from the way I thought they were for other people. And what I have to think back on is how brave they were to even speak up. Because speaking up to a power structure or to Bill McCarthy, who's the head, it may not be that so easy. And yet we really need to thank them for doing that. And I remember, again, back into the 90s when this was part of my work, was, the opportunity to hear from people who are speaking honestly is a real gift. Because you can live a long time in your own straitjacket. And I can even read. I can read about white fragility. I can read, but my reading means more since I've had at least some real life experiences of people who were sad or angry or frustrated or disappointed or whatever about things that happened to them or their children or their IEP in their school or whatever. It's a learning process for everybody. And I feel really glad that you gave us more of an opportunity that day at the Board of Trustees. And I think we all just need to keep on doing it. And we need to be really thankful for the people who will speak up, which I think includes all those people who reacted so vehemently to the George Floyd thing. Because I really know a lot of people who somehow they were never really aware that there is a difference in the way policing takes place. Mm-hmm. Right. We think of it as being protective, and others think of it as being quite aggressive.
Mm-hmm. And we've looked to the balance too, as we've even had these kind of open conversations with colleagues about, we don't want to only look to our colleagues of color to say, tell us, share your vulnerable, difficult moments. We want to balance that. If you want to share, if it's helpful for you to share, we're here to listen, and if it's not comfortable for you to share, especially in a professional setting, then we will continue to learn and read and study. And
and that's really good point, because once again, it's like, is this on me to fix it for you? Well, no. And I think anybody who feels a part of a group that maybe has had to struggle, maybe women, maybe older people, maybe whatever, have sort of feelings like, I'm tired of telling you all about this. I mean, like, just wake up. So I get what you're saying, and I think it's very true. On the other hand, I really am grateful for people who can, in whatever way is good for them, open my eyes a bit more. And certainly Abram Kendi and the people who bothered to write those books have been very helpful.
Right. Of course, you can write your legislators and email them and put up the Black Lives Matter sign, of which there are a lot in my neighborhood, but somebody decided to crumble mine and spray the SSND's nuns with orange spray. Oh. But they put theirs back further, and I hammered mine up on the tree, and they haven't bothered it since. But also there's, the dialogue that we need to do amongst one another. And I'm in a group that used to be part of the Archdiocese. It's called Beyond the Boundaries. So you could go to their website, and one of the speakers who spoke before in another group on red line, how the red line has affected people still today, is still affecting the Black people today. They're going to have a online or a Zoom meeting on the 24th of September at 7 o'clock. So it's a workshop on how redlining has affected certainly Baltimore, but many other communities. So Beyond the Boundaries website should eventually have it up there.
Alison, do you want to talk about Antero joining us on the topic of redlining and structural racism in Baltimore?
Yeah,
and we can invite others to that. Yeah.
Mary Catherine just reminded me of that. Talking about Beyond the Boundaries, which has done great work along the years. September 30th, we're honored to have Antero Patila, the author of Not in My Neighborhood and Ghost of Johns Hopkins, is going to speak with us. It's at 3 p.m. on that, I think it's a Wednesday. He's going to talk to us for a bit and then have a dialogue and discussion with us. And leading up to that, our DEI Council is hosting a book club for Ghost of Johns Hopkins for our colleagues who are interested. We did Not in My Neighborhood earlier this summer, even before we knew he was going to come speak to us. So we're doing Ghost of Johns Hopkins this time. And we will be recording Antero's comments at the beginning, probably not the discussion afterwards, but so we can get that link out, but we can also share the recording as well, if that's helpful.
Sure.
Great. Well, before we wrap up, are there any more thoughts or questions? All right. Once again, thank you, Alison, for speaking with us today. And thank you to our guests for taking the time out of your schedule to attend this session. We will have another session on Thursday, September 24th. We will be talking about workforce development with Kevin Creamer, Program Manager of Client Services. And we hope you will join us. So take care and enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Very good.
Really.
Nice job now.